So we learned a lot checking out this absolutely massive 48-inch OLED monitor from the likes of BenQ. It's a very huge commitment, literally, to have in your setup. What is up, guys? Welcome back to Too Much Tech. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the BenQ EX480UZ. This is a 48-inch OLED 120Hz HDR10 monitor with HDMI 2.1, two ports actually that are both full speed HDMI 2.1, and it also features a KVM switch. But before we go in depth with the EX480UZ, we're gonna have a quick word from today's video sponsor. If you have a difficult home theater setup or would like to present something where you normally would use an HDMI cable, but the area is not the safest to put your expensive device, well, here we have the Jektor Pro wireless projector system to help solve that issue. The Jektor Pro will free up some options for setting up your ideal audio video solution and greatly help out with cable management for a neat, clean, and effective system. The Jektor Pro uses 30 GHz frequency millimeter wave to deliver uncompressed 4K performance up to 25 meters away and with next to no latency, so you can even utilize this system to play fast-paced games. The setup is super quick and easy. Just plug in your USB-C power cable and HDMI cable into your source and do the same to the display that you are projecting to, and it will automatically connect within 5 to 8 seconds. Just make sure that you have a clear line of sight between the millimeter wave projector and receiver, and you are all set to go for the best performance. This is incredibly strong technology that after testing, I'm very impressed with how fast it is able to transmit the signal, and quite honestly, I cannot tell the difference between using the Jektor Pro and a traditional HDMI cable. Even with a minor obstruction in front of the Jektor Pro, it still works very well and will not interrupt your video signal. It does not require Wi-Fi or an app to set up, and it works very easily with your HDMI equipped devices such as a laptop or a phone with an adapter. Check out the Kickstarter for the Jektor Pro at the first link in the description, and I am positive that you're going to be pretty impressed with the performance. So the 48-inch OLED monitor from BenQ Mobius, this is a very unique panel since this is going to be a 48-inch 120Hz panel with pretty decent motion response times. But quite frankly, guys, I'm gonna come out and say to you guys, you're gonna definitely want to use this if you are largely playing console or playing PC games with your feet kicked back and using a controller, because quite frankly, using this thing with keyboard and mouse was not my favorite experience, just because I'm so used to gaming at much higher refresh rates faster than 120 Hz that at the beginning of this video, if I could say one bad thing about this monitor, I just wish it was faster, because otherwise it is really good. As far as the design, of course, this thing is absolutely massive. Taking it out of the box was not the most fun time, especially alone, so you may want a friend to help you out because it is pretty heavy. If you're pretty strong, you definitely can do it yourself. Speaking of which, it is VESA mount compatible, but VESA wall mount specifically. It looks like it has holes for a VESA desk mount, but trust me, you don't want to use that. You definitely want to use a wall mount or just use the included stand. Inside the box, you're gonna find an HDMI 2.1 cable, a DisplayPort cable, a USB cable, a USB Type-C cable, and also a screwdriver, as well as some screws to put on the back of the monitor stand. This is the first monitor I've ever gotten where they actually gave you a screwdriver. So if that's not telling you something, I definitely would heed that advice of probably just use the stand and put it on your desk. Now, all the ports on this monitor are also on the left side, so you will have to keep that in mind for cable management. It's probably going to be best to have your PC or anything else on the left side of this monitor. And it does also offer a KVM switch, and that USB Type-C port does also give you 90-watt power delivery as well. So if you are using it for charging your laptop, you're gonna have no issues there. It should be able to charge a very powerful laptop as long as the laptop's USB-C port does accept the full 90 watts, which most of them, I'm pretty sure that they do. If you're curious, it is not exactly a Thunderbolt USB-C port, but it is definitely a DisplayPort compatible USB Type-C port. Now this monitor does also feature an anti-glare matte coating, so of course it's not a glossy coating. Would we love to see that? Absolutely, but in my opinion it really does not affect the usability of the panel. Like, would glossy look better? Yes, maybe, but it's not that big of a deal when it comes to actual performance. And when you're in front of the monitor or even off to the side, you still have very good viewing angles and nothing looks muddy or washed out. Quite frankly, I mean, we're all pretty used to using matte displays on a lot of our gaming products and desk and office products anyways. So with that being said, I don't really think that you'll miss having a glossy screen if you go with this as your main gaming / productivity monitor. Speaking of productivity, I was actually pretty impressed when I was comparing the FPS mode to the P3 mode. The P3 mode actually got 95% of P3 color gamut coverage, but it definitely blew the FPS mode out of the water when it came to the actual color accuracy when comparing a lot of the different color ranges, coming in at under 2 for the Delta E, which is pretty impressive, and this monitor is definitely good enough to use for productivity and color correction work. When it comes to the brightness of the panel, I definitely would use the FPS mode if you're looking for the brightest experience. If you're looking for the more accurate color, definitely use the P3. You're gonna drop down from 150 nits of sustained brightness with a high white level on the screen down to about 116. So it is gonna make a pretty noticeable difference. If you are just playing games, it gets plenty bright and it's definitely a lot brighter than the 150 nits of sustained brightness when there is largely a white portion of the screen. Now this is where it gets interesting. So as far as the motion blur performance, it is decent, believe it or not, since this is an OLED panel. But the problem with this panel, not necessarily is it being OLED in technology, it honestly cannot keep up with fast-paced keyboard and mouse gameplay for my personal taste, and is good enough to use for a controller where it's definitely not an issue and it's going to be better than using an LCD panel at 120 Hertz. But when it comes to using keyboard and mouse when you're like seriously whipping and panning super duper quickly, very often it does get to be a little bit jarring when it comes to the refresh rate. And the biggest thing that I would say that bothers me about this is just the fact that I would love if this monitor / panel was faster. If this thing could reach like 165, 175 Hertz, it would be a lot more ideal for keyboard and mouse gaming use personally. Now, if you aren't really sensitive to playing on a 120 Hertz display, I would say sure, it wouldn't really be a big enough issue for you at all. But if you're like me and you're used to using 170 Hertz to 240 Hertz and above monitors, switching to this, I don't recommend, is going to be very, very jarring. But as long as you're used to playing at 60 Hertz and you're looking for this massive display that's basically a TV, it probably isn't going to bother you at all, and you're going to be feeling right at home playing at a lot faster than 60 Hertz, because it definitely looks way better than if this thing is running at 60 Hertz. Just in comparison to other things that are out there, it definitely would be better if it was faster. It does come with, as far as the HDR experience, there are a ton of different modes that you can mess with to really tweak and tune your HDR experience. Now, of course, with this being an OLED panel, you are going to get those perfect black levels, and you can also tune them to be a little bit brighter or a little bit darker to show more or less detail depending on the level of immersion that you're looking for, and also to have a competitive advantage depending on the type of game that you're playing. Now, something that is not new to the Mobius monitor lineup is the fact that this monitor does also come with a remote, which is nice because you can use it to tweak the volume, tweak the settings in the on-screen display, use the quick settings. I'm just glad that they decided to include this yet again with this monitor, just like their other Mobius products. Now, as a nice party trick, this monitor can also be divided up into 4 different 24-inch quadrants that you can use to have as multiple displays on one PC. You could use it to divide things up, maybe have one display as cable TV, another as your laptop or game console. Now, the EX480UZ does also have a feature where you can use the 48-inch panel and actually cut it down to either a 27 or 24-inch screen size, and there may even be a 32-inch mode too. I'll check and show you guys on the screen. But basically, that is pretty cool because if you're like me and you think it's a little bit too immersive to game at the full 48 inches all the time, especially when you're trying to be a little bit more competitive and get right up on the screen and make sure you have really good aim, that's actually a very handy feature. Now, just being honest with you, it does read out the full 4K signal and just turns that into a smaller display. It does not change the resolution of the monitor to be a lower resolution. So if your PC has a hard time hitting that full 120 FPS while gaming, you might want to turn your settings down or change the resolution in Windows to actually help you out and get a little bit more performance. But if you have something, probably an RTX 3070 playing on like medium to low settings, you're probably going to be fine, especially if you're using something like DLSS to help you boost your frame rate. Maybe go up to about a 3080 and above. You should be definitely golden when it comes to 4K 120 FPS gaming in most competitive titles where you probably would want a smaller screen. Last thing that I want to mention is that this monitor does also come with a 3-year warranty, which is pretty nice, especially when it comes to thinking about the fact that this is an OLED panel and a lot of people are worried about burn-in and other things too. So as long as you're being responsible and you are using the OLED pixel refresh and cleaning tools that are included in the on-screen display, and this monitor also has a pretty quick shut off. Like if you don't use this thing for about 10 minutes, it turns the display off, which is pretty nice. You really don't have to worry about coming back and suffering with a lot of different burn-in issues. So that's just pretty nice that they are actively trying to make sure that they prevent that from happening, especially if you leave a static image on the screen for a long time. But ultimately, guys, a lot of people are getting into having these giant monitors, in my opinion, like 42-inch to 48-inch and even 55-inch TVs literally on your desk and using them as their main PC monitors. Now, personally, is that something that I'm interested in doing? Not really. Like, I'm definitely comfortable with a 27-inch monitors, maybe a couple of them, or a 34-inch monitor. So if BenQ could get into the 27 to 34-inch ultra wide and even a 32-inch 4K OLED monitor, that would be absolutely fantastic. Like, quite frankly, if you want to make the best monitor that a lot of people are looking for right now, make a 32-inch minimum 144 hertz or 160 hertz OLED monitor with HDMI 2.1 and everybody would buy it. Trust me on that one. Like, a lot of people are looking for that. Beat everybody else to the punch. But if you are looking for a massive 48-inch OLED monitor with really good longevity and a warranty to back it up, I definitely would recommend taking a look at this one. I will have a link to it, of course, in the description below. But I do want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.